Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltiziak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. Welcome to another episode. Welcome to episode number, let's call it episode number unplanned, folks. We weren't planning to do this episode, which means our next few episodes are going to be probably off-numbered as well, but that's okay because a lot of stuff kind of went on this morning. A lot has transpired, so we'll just call this episode Roster Deconstruction and Reconstruction. So here we are. Lions fans woke up to a trade, then 2 waiver claims, a free agent signing, plus the practice squad activity. Folks, we're going to help you digest all of that and more. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
Hey, this is Rob Rubik, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Joining me today is Coach Jerry Angers, former Michigan High School Coach of the Year, as well as Coach of the Week by the Detroit Lions. He's also the Scouting and Training Director for Bull Rush Sports. Coach, long time no talk.
Yeah, for sure. I just got done icing my thumbs from going back through Twitter and all the Instagrams and everything today, trying to figure out what the Lions were doing.
That's right. Coach was keeping us informed. The us is me and James Cook, the senior sports writer for the Traverse City Record Eagle. While we were working hard, he's also the sports writer of the year for Community Newspaper Holdings Incorporated. James, we weren't expecting this flurry of activity today, were we?
I mean, the practice squad obviously was expected, but
Sure.
yeah, the trade not really expected. The waiver claims were not necessarily guys that we were looking at, but looking into them, they look like guys who are fits.
For sure. And again, we knew there would be some activity or likely because the roster was at 50. But we didn't know how it would go or what it would look like or if it would even happen today. But as we get started, folks, remember, tell your friends and family about the show. Follow us on social media. Follow us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment. We love hearing what you guys think. We love your insights on what's going on right now. So, guys, as I mentioned, let's call this roster deconstruction and reconstruction because there's more activity than expected. We went to bed with 50 guys on the roster, not 53. It dropped to 49 quite early in the morning. Now sits at 52 as we record this on Wednesday night. So, first news of the day was the Tim Patrick trade, Coach. I had Ben Raven from M Live on last week after the Houston game, and he was like, Tim Patrick has looked good in practice this week, which was an encouraging thing because he had self-admittedly said he wasn't having a great camp. Then he was injured when you and James and I were there. He wasn't practicing. And so, all right, well, he's trending in the right direction. But I know this caught me off guard. What's your thoughts on the trade of Tim Patrick to Jacksonville for a late-round pick?
Yeah, I mean, I never thought that was going to happen once we saw how the roster shook out. But, I was reading a lot of different things on TP. He was saying that, as hard on himself as anybody. I remember him saying one statement, this is my first full year, preseason with the Lions, and man, has practiced hard. He's an older guy and he's had some serious injuries. And so, the trade thing was kind of a shock. I was happy when they kept him and happy for him. But, I think it's one of those things the Lions went to him. Raymond was doing well. You got Tesla. And I think, I believe the Lions, they probably had a talk and said, look, dude, you're probably, not going to see the field a ton. And, and I think he lost 2 full years, prior to last year with the Lions. So I think it was a mutual agreement that they said, hey, if you can shop me, and we got a draft pick for him, and last year we picked him up because he was cut. So, and I think it's good both ways. I think it's going to help the Lions out with developing the young guys. And I think it's going to help TP have a, at least a couple more years on his career. And I wish him all the best because he's another one of those guys that we were excited when we got him.
Yeah, and he played he filled a huge role that we had on the roster last year with the departure of the role for Josh Reynolds. And when we left training camp, we didn't know what that would look like. And James, Tim Patrick's entire contract was guaranteed, so just cutting him or releasing him probably wasn't the right option. But the trade is still a surprise because we thought that veteran depth, the height, the uniqueness he brings. What was your initial reaction? And then since you've had time to digest it, what's your overall thoughts?
I was a little surprised, but I guess it makes sense when you think about it. They've got five good young receivers that are, in theory, they're the receivers for quite a long time, in Jamison Williams, St. Brown, Taslaw, and then Lovett and Meeks potentially too. So, I mean, they've kind of got their receiving core set for a while. So, like Jerry said, he probably wasn't going to see the field a whole lot. Um, I think they saw that Taslaw brings kind of the same thing that he does as far as from a blocking perspective. So they kind of overlapped each other. And I don't know that there was going to be a big role there. The getting a sixth round pick for him really surprised me. Instead of I figured if anything, it would be a seventh when I saw that he had been traded, or one of those trades where you trade a seventh for a sixth. But just getting a sixth straight up, I thought was kind of a deal.
Mhm.
Yeah, that number surprised me as well because I didn't know what the market was. Obviously, Jacksonville feeling they needed another receiver out there for Trevor Lawrence, and I also think this just speaks to where Isaac Taslaw is. Dan Campbell showed that rising, that getting better. But it also the thing was it wasn't just slow growth. It was like he started going, a little bit almost exponential curve on that, and it very well could have shown that he has shown so much in the preseason. The Lions just weren't going to be able to keep him off the field, coach. And so you've got the veteran, but you've got a rookie. And we said from the draft, he doesn't have to contribute right away. He can work in slow, but there's always some guys that do explode early, and you just can't keep them off the field. What does this mean for Taslaw, the rookie, and the overall offensive calibration, I guess, for the receiving core?
Well, I think it's a we said yesterday we're going to see the ball. I think downfield, more downfield throws, let's talk about Tesla's growth. We talked about, I think it was the first game where he got stopped and Allen threw that interception in the end zone. Remember, he didn't get off the ball. And I said, he didn't get off the ball, and then he came back and said that. Then the next game he gets off the ball. Granted, he's not going against the ones in the preseason game, but it should open our offense up more, where TP wasn't as much of a threat, a downfield threat, more of a hook, curl, dig routes, things like that. Now we have two guys that can stretch the field, and so pick your poison, and a tight end that can stretch the field, and a running back that can stretch the field. So there's going to be some growing pains. He's going to have some tough times, but the good thing is they have to watch film on him. They have to plan against them, and come up with a game plan against them, and that's what's huge. So, and it sounds like the blocking is going to be good. He does a good job of blocking. He's long, he's strong, he'll put his head in there. So I think it's a big plus for us, even though he is a rookie. But there's enough veterans around there to help him with questions and answers.
Well, when we were at the Miami joint practice with the Lions, we saw him block on a Jahmyr Gibbs run, so much so that his helmet came off, and he didn't back down from the other player, and so it is exciting to see that about him. And James, this means his trajectory is going to just be that much quicker or more impactful, and he's going to be the third or fourth option being thrown to, which means he'll have the third or fourth defensive back on him.
Yeah, I think re-signing Tim Patrick was kind of one of those things where you're like, he's the insurance policy, because they didn't figure that Taslaw would be ready to be a major contributor this year. And I think trading him says he's way ahead of what we thought. Maybe we thought that we were going to get some reps this year and that he'd be a major player next year, but it looks like he's going to see the field on a regular basis as the number 3 receiver quite a bit. Or fourth at worst, if you have Raymond with a slot. But so I think it says a lot about Taslaw's growth and how much ahead of the curve he is, even than what they hoped.
And that was one other thing too. I was reading, Raymond tore it up in camp. I guess he had one of his best camps. I don't know if I'm sure you guys read that also. I saw it, read it, heard, Campbell and whoever else talking about it. So, those two may split time. And, they said Raymond is one of those guys. If he's in one-on-one, you can't guard him. And so, it's probably not as big of a jump as we think it is because we have Raymond there to help him out. So looking
Yeah.
forward to this one.
Yeah, and again, the catching ability from Taslaw, I think, is what's so exciting as well, on top of everything else. And you're right, Khalif looked great when we were there. And we will talk about one of the guys on practice squad receiver. It does make sense that the Lions moved him. I mean, really appreciate what he did last year for the Lions. He filled a big need. And Coach, like you said, it might have been a numbers playing time thing, and they might have said, hey, we want you here, but you're going to get more playing time elsewhere. Or we're like, hey, we need to make a different spot. We can only keep so many receivers on the active roster, knowing we might want some more depth elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Well, depth elsewhere came with a free agent signing very shortly after that. Didn't stray away from the team, though. It was Jacksonville involved with this. Daniel Thomas, the safety from Jacksonville, was signed. And, folks, I've got to tell you, if you go to ESPN, he is on the roster. They've already updated the roster and put him on there. Do you know where I'm going next, Coach? You know who's still on the roster that shouldn't be on the ESPN roster? Yeah, running back is still there, Justin Jackson. He's still listed by ESPN as being on the roster. He's not there, folks. But Daniel Thomas, safety, there's some familiarity with him, Coach. What do you got on Daniel Thomas here? And, this brought the roster back up to 50 with that move.
Yeah, well, his DB coach was a guy named Townsend who's coaching for the Lions now. So that makes a big difference. I read up on him and kind of did some research and stuff after. I mean, this he's a freak on specialty teams. I mean, it's he's played in at least 15 games over the last 4 years. 10 in his rookie year. He's had 1,184 special team snaps.
Wow.
In 5 years. And over the last 4 years, he's had 230 plus. So he can play safety, which everybody we talked about it yesterday. Oh my God, we don't have that fourth safety. We have another one, even though, we got, Rock could fill that out. Maddox could fill that out. And so he plays everything. He plays every special team role and he can play safety for us. So, and again, anytime you have a position coach that's in a position in another team that's coached a guy and they go get him, he's pounding the table to bring him in, and that he's going to be a big help for us. So looking forward. And, last night, I think that, Matt, you talked about special teams. They're going to go after special teams. Are going to be a lot bigger this year. They're going to go after and look. I think you're right, because they just added one of the best guys around.
Well, that's the thing, right? The special teams is probably what brings him here, but it also does give you some depth at safety, where the guy has played 71 games in the NFL over the last 5 seasons. And we know, you're like, oh, they're trying Rock Ya-Sin back there. They're moving Maddox around. But James, more depth behind, the top 2 guys there is always a good thing. What are your thoughts on the Daniel Thomas move?
Yeah, the Townsend connection obviously helps. They, were like, hey, this guy, I'm going to assume that Townsend was like, hey, this guy's better than a fourth safety. He just hasn't gotten the opportunity in Jacksonville, because he's played less than 100 snaps on defense over the last 3 years. But almost 450 in his career. But you mentioned that almost 1,200 on special teams that's a huge amount. Interestingly, he played a season low 7 snaps against the Lions last year. The rest of the year, he was like 15, 20, 25 special team snaps. He only played 7 against the Lions. But he's also a fairly big safety at 215. So he's somebody, where they figure if they have a game where they're going to have somebody more kind of in the box type safety, they can change their defense that way a little bit too, a little bit bigger safety. So he's been pretty durable in his career too. Jerry mentioned 16 games last year, 15 the year before that. He only played 10 as a rookie, but 6 of those were missed because of COVID, not because of an actual injury.
All right. That's a great information, great analysis there. Anything else you guys have on Daniel Thomas? Obviously, veteran, so he didn't have to go through the waiver process, so he was free to sign with anybody. The Lions scouting group obviously continuing to do their work to look at the other rosters to know who and when might be available that they'd want to go for, and that coaching connection probably helped. All right. Well, then they went through the process, and there weren't. Was it 27 players across the league were claimed? I think I saw. I don't know how that relates to the percentages, but as James pointed out, a very low percentage gets claimed, and we'll talk about how that reflected on the Detroit Lions departures. But the Lions got 2 waiver claims. Let's start with defensive end Tyrus Wheat from Dallas. Coach, he's played in 20 games in 2 seasons. He had a half a sack. But I know you're pretty excited about these waiver claims and the youth. So let's start with the defensive end there, where the Lions only had 3 defensive ends when the cut down happened. So talk about this.
Well, he's 6'2", 260. Here's the thing: is he played for Dallas, who is a team that we've played against. So we have film on these guys, and I found a clip watching him against Sewell last year, and hands are fast, violent. He uses his hands well. His head is in the right position. He's looking in the backfield. He's pursuing after the ball. I mean, just he only gets a couple against Sewell, but my point is, did Sewell say anything about this? Did somebody else say it? Did they see it on there and go, man, this guy actually, beat Sewell? I'm not saying he beat Sewell. I'm just saying that to see him against Sewell and his head is right. The hands, the violent hands are quick, uses his hands well. And, he's peeking around his blocker to find the ball carrier. So I think, we pick up a guy, a veteran that's played, and, he's got some miles on his belt. So looking forward to seeing how he fares with us and what he can do for us.
All right. James, again, we talked about they're going to have to elevate somebody from the practice squad for the Green Bay game week 1 if they didn't get anybody picked up or signed. This does take care of that immediate need if they can get him up and ready to go for that game. What are your thoughts on this move? And did you, I'm sure you applaud it, but if you don't, you can say that.
Well, it's interesting. They signed Tyler and Tyrus, and they already have Tyleek on the defensive line. So I've already seen somebody call them the TIE Fighters.
Oh, nice.
But Tyrus Wheat is supposedly just all motor and relentless. And those are exactly the kind of defensive linemen that Holmes and Campbell love. So he's also played more snaps on special teams than he has even on defense for the Cowboys over the last 2 years. So he brings that aspect as well as somebody from the defensive line who plays special teams. So that's an added little bonus there for him.
Nice. Well, and that'll be good too. Again, more special team stuff and more depth. And again, this is that time of the year to try and get somebody. It wasn't 2 weeks ago. It was during the roster trim down and see who's going to fit for you guys. And so, this is, 2 years in Dallas. He's still young. There's still opportunity. And you already brought up the next guy. If they are the TIE Fighters, you've got some more help, some more depth on the defensive line. Coach, it's defensive tackle Tyler Lacey from Jacksonville. Back to Jacksonville again. Quite the connection with this. Probably coincidental, but he was there over the last 2 seasons, played in 28 games. What are you seeing on this guy's tape?
Same thing. He's 6'4", 276. He's got connections with guys from the Lions that have seen him in practice, seen him on the field, seen him in the weight room, whatever. If they even do that stuff, with the weight room. But he can fill 2 positions, D and D tackle. He's kind of like the Levi, Pascal concept, I think, where he can go inside or he can play outside. He's a big body. Again, young, 28 total games of NFL experience. So those are all things that you look at and you kind of go, okay, there's some experience. We had some guys in camp that did well, did a lot of good things. Everybody's positive about them, but they don't have that NFL experience. And when you start looking at our roster now and our practice squad, which I know we're going to talk about, man, there's some players out there, and when we're cutting guys and bringing guys from other teams like this that have some experience, that's great. So again, 6'4", 276, he's big body, what we need. And it sounds like he can play both sides, a couple of different positions for us on defense.
Yeah. And I think that versatility is probably important, James, because even with the injuries on the inside, we're not looking bad. I mean, we pretty good in the middle there, but he can do that and move around. What are your thoughts on Tyler Lacey?
Yeah, that the versatility definitely helps him. He's kind of in that, like Coach said, the Josh Pascal mode, but also maybe like a Trey Wingo, Levi, where it's guy that's kind of light for a defensive tackle, but also small enough that they can play end and set the edge. So the Lions really seem to like players like that. So at around 280, he totally fits that mold. He had three tackles and a tackle for a loss against the Lions last year, so they saw something on tape against him. And lo and behold, he also plays special teams. Had 48 special team snaps last year. So, just another guy that they had that. I think they took advantage of the Jaguars having a new general manager and not having ties to any of these players, and he kind of maybe let a few players go that he just didn't have any connections to, and young general managers tend to do that. So I mean, Lacey was a fourth round pick, just 34 picks after Broderick Martin in the same draft.
Well, there you go, folks. It's almost like a trade. So yeah, and
Yeah.
you know what? Again, you said special teams. That's they're going to contribute a lot there, and that's what's going to keep them there. But they're also available for the rotations.
Yeah, it's almost like they traded Tim Patrick for a sixth round pick and Lacey and Thomas.
Yeah, there you go. It's a great. That's a nice return. All right, so that puts the Lions back up to 52 people on the roster for the active roster. We don't have that 53rd. We don't know who that could be. Z, what could you think? No, I'm just kidding. That's really bad. Everyone's still thinking it's Darius Smith. I don't know. You think if the guy wants to play football, he's going to sign with somebody soon, but I don't know what his life looks like, so I'm not going to speculate. I think Lions fans would still like the depth, but you go forward with the team you got, right, Coach?
Yep. And that's the thing is who's in the building, who's on the field, who's between the lines, who's in the locker room. I mean, you have to do that. And it goes back to them bringing these guys in, and we have guys that are coming back from IR that's going to just really log jam this roster. But right now we don't have those guys, so these guys are all given an opportunity. Seize that moment, seize that day, and it'll decide whether you're going to be on the roster when we do get the reinforcements back or not. So again, filling guys in certain situations that can whether it's a three tech or whether it's an end tech or it's a press, you're going to pressure or clog the center. And create double teams so the best linebacking core in the NFL can run around and tackle people. So, who's in the building right now? Let's see. Let's get them ready and let's go.
All right, before we move on from this topic, James, any last insights on Za'Darius Smith before the next episode when we give our next last insights?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a logical move, but only time will tell, I guess. I mean, I think technically Ahmad Hassanin would have reverted to the roster after he cleared waivers, so he might have had to be on the 53 for a day, and then just for like a business day or something like that before they can do the injury settlement thing with him. So he could be the 53 for right now,
Sure.
for a few hours or whatever. But yeah, they have one more spot. They could just go into the week with 52, not have a 53rd guy. If they've got enough that are healthy, he only gets dressed 48 anyway. So, or 45 is it? Yeah.
No,
And
Coach, yeah.
so you're gonna have some guys that aren't gonna play anyway.
For sure.
Or you just call somebody up off the practice squad that is a good fit for whatever you're doing that week against Green Bay.
All right. Well, I think the next topic is we hit a home run with it, and that was we think we look at our roster the way you look at your own fantasy football roster. Your players are more valuable to you than they are to the guys on the other teams. And proof of that, and James, you brought this up, I believe that, Brad Holmes knows if somebody's going to get claimed or not. And presumably he thought nobody would get claimed because that's exactly what happened. Not one player got claimed. And once we saw the quarterbacks getting released, I was like, we all, tempered our expectations on Hendon Hooker. And then, we thought, well, maybe Broderick Martin and maybe, Jackson Meeks, but nobody claimed. And so, Coach, start with you. You shocked, you surprised, or you just, that's just the way it goes?
It's just the way it goes. I mean, James came with the percentages last night, and that's And Brad Holmes has been awesome and perfect, and I think perfect on his decisions to waive people, and they don't get picked up. So, again, it's we talked about it a little bit last night. It's tough, man. You're going to pick somebody up. They better be very good. And you go last year, we did it with Trevor Nowaski. Okay, but Trevor Nowaski was in our camp the year before, and we knew exactly what they didn't want to put him down to practice squad. I think it was week 16 or 17, his first year, and they lost him. They couldn't wait to get him back. So it's pretty tough. It's unless there's somebody out there that you're just watching and go, oh my God, he was the best player I've ever seen. Well, then why is he on waivers? So. It's just tough. I just think teams aren't going to take that chances. And, we talked about a little bit again last night too, is your draft picks, you want to say, I have 100% of my draft picks still in the league, or I have 100% of my draft picks on the roster, or there's not many people that want to take that waiver and bring them in there, because then they're saying, what's the GM and the scouting department doing? They can't even keep the guys they're drafting. So that's my 2 cents, maybe 3.
All right. James, what do you want to add to that about none of the Lions players getting claimed, and just your thoughts? I know a little bit of surprise, but at the end of the day, you led with the stats, and they seem to all back it all up.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was what, 20 some, you said 27 got claimed, I think total. Two of them were by the Lions. I mean, everybody had to cut down from 90 to 53. So how many players is that? Over 400?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a lot out of that many guys cut.
Now, the Lions didn't bring some of their guys back, because that's the thing. Going to the practice squad, Lions did bring a number of guys back. Hendon Hooker signing with the Carolina Panthers. Broderick Martin going to the Kansas City Chiefs. Those are, the 2 third-round picks. And I'm sure I didn't look to follow everybody's track that got cut down, but those were the big names. I'm not surprised Hendon didn't come back, based on Campbell saying that change of scenery. We all heard that. And, I do expect the Lions to put somebody on the practice squad that plays quarterback. They currently have 15 spots there. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But, Coach, your thoughts on the players not coming back, like Broderick Martin or Hendon Hooker or anybody else?
No, and I think it's a change. Didn't Pico, didn't he go to the Chiefs also?
I think Isaiah Buggs did, didn't he?
Buggs did. You're right. Isaiah Buggs. That's right. Isaiah Buggs. Yeah, that's the one I was just thinking. So I guess the Chiefs like our guys. They don't end up staying. But anyways, no, I think those guys, Dan Campbell's not very negative, but he does give you his exact feelings. And we knew Broderick Martin had a long way to go and had to have a great camp. Again, he lost last year, and then the same thing with Hooker. They were given opportunities and they didn't seize them. And so it's time to move on. And I'm sure the Lions just said to him, "We're not going to bring you back." I mean, look at our practice squad that we have, and plus we went out and got 2 guys on waivers too. So, so they had a plan, and those 2 weren't involved.
All right, James. Any last thoughts on the Lions players like Hooker or, Broderick Martin, or anybody else that the Lions, let go and didn't bring back?
Nope, not really.
All right. Well, then let's talk about the guys they did bring back, because everybody on the practice squad was on that 90-man roster, right? They didn't grab somebody from out there and add them to their practice squad, which means there's a lot of guys the Lions liked. If we start on offense, death, taxes, Tom Kennedy, right? That man is back, and you got to admire that, man. The man's living his dream, and he's accomplishing things that many football players would sacrifice so much to get to. Mm-hmm. And so there's a reason he's there. It's got to be for the dependability of what he is and the familiarity of the offense. But in the wide receiver room, you have him, Jackson Meeks, and Ronnie Bell. I kind of thought Ronnie Bell might stick around. He actually showed a little bit in camp. It's a depth part. We're all really happy Jackson Meeks is back. That's a guy that I see making the 53-man next year. And then Jacob Saylor is a running back. Those are the skill positions, if you will, that are on the offense. What are your thoughts there, Coach? Jackson Meeks probably jumps out, but I know you like Sailors. Give me some of your analysis on that.
I mean, Kennedy, 20, he's been with us since 2019. He's played 24 games. And he's been Mr. Reliable no matter what. Go back and return a punt. Go back, KK. We got to put you up here. So I think he's just he's that lunch pail guy that the Lions like. We've already talked about that, and he just fits that mold. And they're looking at who are we going to get better. Who are we going to get to do what we want him to do? He probably gives them a great look in practice, and he can fill in wherever he needs to be. Sailor, I just like. I mean, Sailor, we talked. I think we were texting back and forth. That kid runs hard. His skill set is great. He's got great balance. Catches the ball well. He put his hat on somebody when he's got a block. So, I think that was one of the ones that you look at and go, he's got a really good shot to stick around. It's a crowded room, but again, here's a guy that we can hopefully develop in that situation. Meeks, again, his numbers were off the charts. Hopefully he gets works on some special team stuff like that. Does a lot of good things. Hey, he had some drops, but that's part of the thing. But again, another guy that's going to give us a great look in practice. Another guy if we need, it can come up and get the job done. And, Ronnie Bell's was with the 49ers. I think he's got 3 career touchdowns. He coming out of college, he was very highly regarded. So again, just another guy, but we got better. We got better on the practice squad. We got better on the skill level on the 53 man. So, when you look at the guys, those guys, man, that's huge practice squad skill players.
Yep, and then one skill player I forgot to add, which I know James is going to want to talk about, is Zach Horton. We also have a tight end there, which gives you that 4th tight end option. You can maybe call him up for a special situational opportunity and or to replace somebody if need be. The skill positions on offense before we get to the offensive line, James, what are some of your thoughts?
Yeah, the interesting thing about Tom Kennedy is, on the practice squad, you get the 6 veteran players.
Yeah.
Tom Kennedy does still not count as a veteran player
He hasn't
because
played enough games.
The practice squad rules are based on games, not time. Whereas like towards your pension and towards whether you have to be waived or cut is all based on how much time you've been in the league. But the practice squad is based on how many games you've played in the NFL. So he
Do you
hasn't
know how
played
many you need?
3 seasons worth of games, so he's not considered a veteran for practice squad rules.
It won't be next year either, likely. You never know. You never know. But, you get 3 elevations a year. So who knows?
Yeah.
All right. The Jackson Meeks, so you got to really be excited about that, James. I'm not going to tell you what you have to do. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to think that he'll be up on the 53-man roster at some point this season. And he's probably one of their guys that, you get the 4 protections on your practice squad where you can say that another team can't take them. So he's probably going to be one of those guys. You can change those from week to week too.
Oh.
During the week. So so that you can kind of maybe more protect against opponents that are coming up and what they may need or want. Meeks, I think, is somebody who you're going to see in a uniform on the sideline rather than street clothes a few times this year.
Awesome. And I'm going to apologize right now. I should not have started with the skill positions. I buried the lead, guys. I mean, Tom Kennedy seems like the lead, but the real lead is the offensive line and Dan Skipper. And we're excited to have him back. We know who reported. We know who was there. We know the play worked. And I just want to see another Dan Skipper touchdown again. Why not? So happy to have him back. We didn't know what direction it was going to go. One of you guys pointed out, and I don't know if you did it on the show or when we were talking after, that last year was the only time Skipper's made an initial 53-man roster. So it shouldn't have been a shock, even though he's become a fan favorite, that he didn't make the initial roster. He's on the practice squad, and you know what you got out of him. You know we can elevate him. Along with him, we got Mason Miller and Michael Neese and Tristan Colon, which, again, he was trending to be the backup center, I believe, before that injury happened. And so, I mean, the offensive side of the ball, I'm really liking all these practice squad guys, Coach. Talk about the offensive line. Obviously, we like Skip. But any of the other guys stick out that you're really glad we got this guy back?
Well, Colin, I knew that, with that injury, they're probably going to get him back on there. I watched him, like I told you in that first preseason game when he came in for Kingsley, he was definitely the better center in that game. And then I think he was starting the second preseason game, and that's when he got hurt. Is that right? and I think he played a couple series and then he got hurt. So, that was big. Skipper again, guys. This is a guy that was on our 53 man last year. Now we have him on the practice squad. I mean, talk about the elevation, like Dan Campbell said, top to bottom, and he's including the 15, 16 now, or when we get to 16. And so Skipper's just a huge one for us. Nice he's got 18 games under his belt, and he can play all three interior positions. So another one, there's a depth piece. I don't know how many he started a game or two for us last year, came in with some injuries or stuff. I mean, who knows that we'd go, I'd lose my hair trying to figure out how many guys played last year in out of positions. But and then Miller's just a big development guy. He's a big tackle, and again, another one of those guys that you see here writing and stuff like that in press conferences about, hey, he had a great practice, or hey, he did well in the game, or hey, this. So I look, it looks good. It looks like we got some pretty good guys to help back up, and some guys we can go to in a pinch.
All right, James, your thoughts on the offensive line guys here?
Yeah, I'm wondering what the over-under is for the Dallas game when he's ultimately elevated from the practice squad that game, of how many times they will say reporting as eligible Dan Skipper.
Right.
Or his number at least,
Yeah.
Because every time that happens, that stadium, because it's here this year, is just going to go crazy.
Yeah.
Especially in that game, because even last year they had to keep going, quiet down from the huddle, and Skipper would even be doing it because everybody would just get loud. Yeah. Well, that's 9 guys on the offense. I mean, 6 are on the defense here, and this is where, man, I mean, Jackson Meeks is a guy we really wanted back, but Eric Hallett is a guy we really wanted back. Keith Cooper is a guy we really wanted back. I'm happy to get Anthony Pittman, Strickland, Isaac Ukwu, and Miles Adams. Coach, what do you got on these guys, and how excited? This is pretty exciting.
Well, Hallett, we talked about it in one of the podcasts about all the different snaps and all the different positions he played. So he's another one of those guys that's going to develop into me. He played unbelievable. He had some great games for us, and you're seeing his number and you're seeing him around the ball, and that's what the Lions are after. So another piece that if something happens, I don't think the Lions will be worried 2, 3, 4 weeks into the season of putting him into the game. So Pittman again, he's got 4 years in. He's got 50 NFL games. He was a special teams player. Was he of the year a couple years ago or up there or something like that? I don't remember of the year, but his numbers and stuff were unbelievable. And then we lost him and brought him back. And he's another depth piece at that linebacker spot we can have. So that's good stuff there. And then who am I missing? Oh, Isaac, Isaac again, Campbell talked about him a couple different times in post games after the preseason game. And again, he played, I think he played in 2 games. He may have started a game for us last year, or 2 games. Again, we can't remember all those numbers, but he's got a lot of upside as that edge rusher. So I think he's good. And then Miles Adams has 30 games. And again, another one of those guys that Campbell talks about, and when he brings him up in the press conferences, that it's a good chance that they're doing something right and doing something good, because it's no negative when he's talking about him. So again, and then Cooper is a great story. UDFA, I think he went to a tryout, didn't he? And then got picked up and then worked himself, and just again he was blowing it up the first couple weeks. Kind of leveled out a little bit, but again, guys that when they got cut, some of these guys when they got cut, we were like, oh man, but now we got them back. So looking forward to these guys again, and they're going to help us in everyday life.
Well, the cool thing is some of these guys were like potential 53-man roster guys that are on your practice squad, which tells you the quality of this depth, not even on the active roster, but on the practice squad. James, throw in some analysis you got on the defensive guys here.
Yeah, a couple of those guys are guys that I thought were going to make the 53-man roster. Cooper was one of them. I thought he was going to make it, and I thought Hallett had been one of those guys who maybe played his way onto the 53 as well. And Adams played quite a bit for us down on the stretch last year, after all those injuries, and played pretty decently.
Mhm.
Good enough that they brought him back. They liked what they saw enough to bring him back. So I think those are all nice kind of players to have on your practice squad, guys you can depend on. Anthony Pittman, they know exactly what they're going to get out of him. Another guy who can play special teams. Lauren Strickland's been there. This is his
Oh
second
yeah.
year in the practice squad, so that's just another DB that they're safe that they're very familiar with.
Yeah,
Awesome. Yeah. And
Strickland
go ahead.
made the 53 last year, right? I
I don't
believe so.
remember.
He was on the 53 for a bit here and there. I
He
can't
may
remember
have.
if he made it right off the bat though.
I think he may have started the season on it. I thought that's what I had read. But again, he's another one of those that, oh my God, now they have guys that are moving him down, even though he was on 53 and he had a pretty good game that last preseason game. So you could see what the Lions liked about him. So
Well, there you go. And the great thing is you've got these guys there working on things right now. And so they're already in the system. They were there all training camp. You brought some new guys in that are on the active roster, but all this practice squad, they're taking everything they've learned all summer. Coach, were you able to confirm that?
yeah, Strickland made the squad last year. And then, and then of course he had that huge last because they were kind of saying Kennelly, and that's one of the ones that we didn't keep, which sad.
Yep.
Hopefully he gets picked up by somebody. But and it's kind of like Kennelly was taking over. And then that last game, they probably told Strickland, "You better ball out." Well, he did. I think he had 9 tackles. So that's kind of the one that he closed the box and said he's part of this group. So at least they now we still have him. So.
Nice. Well, folks, this was our roster deconstruction, reconstruction, because not only did the practice squad stuff take place, we had trade, we had waivers claims, we had free agent signing, a few more moving parts than expected. And we also, Ahmed Hassanin is the guy that did not get claimed. And James, you looked into this a little bit more, I believe. And so the Lions are going to reach an injury settlement with him likely. And we don't know for sure what's going to happen, but that's a possibility. Did you want to speak to this a little bit more?
Yeah, the way it works when you waive somebody with an injury settlement designation is that you basically have to get a doctor that says how long his injury would take to recover
Okay.
from, and the settlement would be that you will pay the person for that much of how they would be hurt. After that happens, he basically becomes a free agent and can sign with whoever he wants. But he could not sign with the Lions for 3 weeks after that. So that part is a
Okay.
thing that the NFL put in there so that teams couldn't use this as a way to stash players.
Makes sense. So we've got that. We have one open active roster spot, or the 53 man, and then we have one open spot in the practice squad, which I believe, and I think you guys do, but you can tell me if you think it's different. I think it's going to be a quarterback. It makes the most sense. We just don't know who it's going to be. There's a number of guys that were released. If that is the case, James, why do you think they haven't done it yet?
They're probably just trying to work out some deals, or a quarterback's trying to shop himself around. Somebody like maybe a Kyle McCord. There was some decent, backup quarterbacks who have some experience, some ones who have, obviously draft pedigree. So these guys are probably trying to find the best situation for them, where they see maybe an avenue towards playing time. I don't know that there really is that in Detroit. But so it's probably just in some negotiations with, I would assume, a quarterback. The other thing with Hassanin is that down the road, if they go past the 3 weeks thing, the Lions could then add him to the practice squad if they wanted to, with that international player pathway
Nice.
extra spot, so that we would not count as one of their 16 guys in the practice squad.
All right. Well, guys, for an unexpected podcast, unplanned, we've gone a good amount of time. So let's wrap this thing up. Coach, any final thoughts on any of the moves today, or anything you want to leave the listeners with?
Nope, just looking forward to seeing how this all pans out against the Packers.
And we will have a preview for that next week, early in the week before they do actually play. So that will be exciting. It's nice knowing who's going to be going to Lambeau now for the most part. James, any final thoughts from you?
I'm all good.
All right, a reminder, we are going to have a preview of Green Bay, of Minnesota, and of Chicago for their season the next few days. The episode numbers might not all add up the way I originally planned them, but you're going to hear from reporters who have been watching the training camps firsthand. So check those out over the weekend. And then early next week, we will have a preview of the Detroit Lions versus Green Bay Packers season opener. Thank you, James. Thank you, Coach. Thank you, folks, for tuning in, listening to us. Please tell your friends and family about this show. Let us know what you think of all these moves. We're on all major streaming platforms, including YouTube. We'd love to hear your thoughts and reviews. Check out more episodes and content at notthesameoldlions.com. And until next time, stay gritty, my friends.